Hi, welcome to episode 3 of A Bible Primer. My name is Doug. For this episode, what we want to talk about is how the Bible came to English. The Bible was originally written, or let me back up. The Old Testament of the Bible was written starting maybe around 1500 BC. So around, what is that, around 3,500 years ago. It was written by the Jews, so it's written in Hebrew. And it was not one book that was laid out. It was a group of scrolls. First of all, they didn't have the book in book form. They wrote them out on scrolls. And it was a grouping of writings, a grouping of scrolls that were considered to be sacred writings to the Jewish. Written in Hebrew, and that was fine up until around the year 331 BC, when a guy named Alexander the Great conquered the world, including the Middle East and including Egypt. Now I say Egypt because Egypt and the Middle East were ruled by Greece and became part of how the Greek Empire was divided up. And the king in Egypt, the Greek king in Egypt, decided that he wanted to have just the biggest, best library in the world. He wanted every book in the world to be in that library. It's the library in Alexandria. And that would include all the sacred writings of the Jews, the Old Testament Bible. Problem is, they're written in Hebrew. He speaks Greek. So he brings in 70 elders, or 72 elders, Jewish scholars, to translate the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. Tradition says that they did it in 70 days, and that's why it's called the Septuagint. Whether they did or not is up to debate, and this new Greek translation of the sacred scriptures of the Hebrews is called the Septuagint. Greek becomes the official language then of the area for a long time, and along comes Jesus, and the New Testament scriptures get written in Greek for the most part. And this is all fine. There is a problem in that Christians are under a lot of persecution. Think Colosseum, lions, general Christian persecution. And the writings of the early church are kind of hidden and scattered and not well organized, not well put together. Until the year 313 comes along, when a man named Constantine becomes emperor of Rome, and he decides, you know what, maybe we can stop persecuting the Christians and make it a legal religion in the Roman Empire. So he legalizes Christianity, and the Christians can come out of hiding, if you will, and they can see what writings they have had hidden away for the last 300 years, and they can organize. They can form councils. They can determine what Christianity is supposed to look like and be. So there are two councils in particular, the Council of Hippo and the Council of Carthage, both in the 390s, that determined or canonized the 27 books of the New Testament, said that these were in fact inspired scripture. Problem: they're in Greek, in the Roman Empire, which speaks Latin. So just a few years later, the scholar Jerome says, I can fix this, and takes the Greek New Testament and translates it into Latin, and continues on, and he does the Old Testament too. This combined writings gets known as the Vulgate. And the Vulgate was the Bible for like 1,000 years for the Christian, well, for the Christian church, which meant for the Catholic Church. In the year 1227, there's an Archbishop of Canterbury by the name of Stephen Langdon who was looking at the Bible and said, you know what? We could divide this into chapters, because up until that point, if you opened up the book of Matthew, it was not divided up into so many chapters. It was the whole book. It started with the first word and ended with the last, and that's all there was to it. So if you wanted to find a particular story, a particular statement, you had to flip through a lot of pages and know where you were in Scripture to find it. So he divided it, the New Testament, up into chapters so that it would be a little more user-friendly in the 1200s. Well, about 200 years later, there was a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Mordecai Nathan who said, you know what, if they can do that with the New Testament, we can do it with the Old Testament. But he upped the game. Not only did he take the Old Testament books and divide it into chapters, he took the chapters and divided them into verses. The New Testament didn't have that done yet. So he kind of, like I say, upped the game for about 100 years. In the year 1551, Robert Estienne, I don't know if I pronounced that last name 100% right, but Robert Estienne divided the New Testament into verses. And for what it's worth, in the year 1560, the Geneva Bible was the first English Bible ever printed, ever employed, that had chapter and verse in the Bible. And it predates, for a Bible we would be a little more familiar with, it predates the King James Bible by about 50 years. King James Bible came out in 1611. So I say all of this just to let you know, sometimes when you're reading the Bible, you're thinking maybe it's not as cohesive as you might want it to be. It's because it's not one book, and it wasn't written in one sitting. It wasn't written in one historical time frame. It covers 1,000 years, covers almost 2,000 years in the stretch that it was written. It wasn't compiled, it wasn't written to be one book. It was written to be several individual books. And when it was compiled over hundreds of years to get it to where it is now. So you've got quite a book in your hands when you have the Bible, and I hope you can appreciate it, and I hope you can appreciate all that went into getting it to you in your hands. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you join me next time when we take a look at the history that's in the Bible. Bye-bye.